You've locked eyes with someone across a room, and in that instant, before a single word is exchanged, something inside you shifted. Not curiosity, not attraction in the casual sense. Something closer to recognition. Like your nervous system made a decision your mind is still trying to catch up to. Most people will tell you that's not real. That love at first sight is a romanticized myth, a trick of dopamine, something that only happens in movies or to people who don't know themselves well enough. They'll say it's infatuation dressed up as destiny. And maybe they're protecting themselves by saying that. Because admitting that a stranger's presence can rearrange your emotional landscape in seconds feels reckless, unsafe, irrational. But here's what they're missing. The people who experience love at first sight aren't delusional. They're wired differently. And there's a psychological architecture beneath that instant knowing that most people never see. Let's talk about what's actually happening when you fall in love the moment you meet someone. The experience begins in your brain's limbic system, the part responsible for emotion, memory, and threat detection. Within milliseconds of seeing someone, your amygdala is already scanning their face, their body language, their energy, cross-referencing it against every attachment pattern you've ever known. And for some people, that scan doesn't just register attractive or interesting. It registers familiar, not in the sense that you've met them before. Familiar in a deeper way, like their presence matches a template your nervous system has been searching for without your conscious awareness. Research on attachment theory shows that we're drawn to people who reflect the emotional textures of our early caregivers, not necessarily in appearance, but in feeling. The way someone holds your gaze, the cadence of their voice, the subtle confidence or vulnerability in how they move through space. If those cues align with the relational blueprint you formed in childhood, your brain doesn't process them as new information. It processes them as return, as homecoming. And that's why it feels like love. Because emotionally, it is. You're not falling for a stranger. You're falling into a nervous system state that feels like the deepest version of safety or longing you've ever known. Sometimes both at once. But it goes deeper than pattern recognition. People who fall in love at first sight often grew up in environments where they had to read people quickly. Maybe emotional availability was inconsistent. Maybe approval was conditional. Maybe the adults around them were unpredictable, and survival meant becoming fluent in micro-expressions, tone shifts, unspoken moods. These people learned early that you don't get a second chance to assess someone's emotional temperature. You read the room in seconds, or you get hurt. So their intuition became sharp, hyper-developed. And when they meet someone whose emotional frequency feels aligned, their system doesn't need weeks of conversation to know. It already knows, because it's been training for this moment their entire life. There's also the role of what psychologists call affect synchrony, the unconscious mirroring of emotional states between two people. Some individuals are extraordinarily sensitive to this. When they meet someone whose nervous system rhythms match their own, it creates an immediate sense of resonance. Heart rates align, breathing patterns sync. It's not metaphorical, it's measurable, and it feels, to the person experiencing it, like they've found the other half of a conversation their body has been having alone. Now, this doesn't mean love at first sight is always accurate. And that's important, because while the recognition is real, what you're recognizing isn't always healthy. Sometimes you're drawn to someone because they remind you of the love you didn't get. Sometimes the familiarity is actually repetition, a chance to replay an old dynamic and try to win this time. The instant bond you feel might not be about them at all. It might be about the younger version of you still hoping that this time, if you love hard enough and fast enough, you'll finally be chosen back. And that's the paradox people who fall in love at first sight have to live with. Their intuition is both a gift and a liability. They can sense connection most people need months to discover, but they can also mistake intensity for intimacy, projection for presence, the promise of healing for the reality of partnership. Still, there's something important to acknowledge here. Falling in love at first sight doesn't make you naive. It makes you someone whose emotional system operates on a different frequency. You feel more faster. And in a world that tells us to be cautious, to take things slow, to protect ourselves at all costs, That kind of openness takes courage, even if it sometimes leads you into relationships that weren't meant to last. What's often misunderstood is that the people who experience this aren't reckless. They're actually deeply aware. They know the risks. They've probably been hurt before in ways that would make most people shut down entirely. But instead of building walls, they stayed open. They kept believing that the right connection would feel different, that they'd know it when they felt it. And maybe they're right. Because while love at first sight doesn't guarantee longevity, it does guarantee presence. These people don't love half-heartedly. They don't test the waters. When they feel it, they're all in. And in relationships, that kind of full-bodied presence, when it's met with reciprocity, can create a depth that slow-burn connections sometimes never reach. The question isn't whether love at first sight is real. It is. The question is whether the person you're recognizing is actually who you think they are. Whether the connection your nervous system is responding to is one that will grow or one that will just repeat. And that's something even the sharpest intuition can't always answer in the first 5 seconds. But here's what you can trust. If you're someone who falls in love this way, you're not broken. You're not immature. You're not setting yourself up for failure. You're experiencing something most people will never understand because they're not built to feel it. Your wiring is different. And that difference comes with trade-offs, yes. But it also comes with a rare capacity for awe, for wonder, for the kind of all-consuming presence that makes life feel like it matters. So if you've ever locked eyes with someone and felt the ground shift beneath you, know this, you didn't imagine it. Something real happened. Whether it leads where you hope it will is another story. But the feeling itself? That was true. And maybe that's enough to keep your heart open for the next time it happens. Because it will. People like you don't stop recognizing love just because it didn't work out before. You keep seeing it, keep feeling it, keep falling into it like it's the first time. That's not a flaw. That's a kind of faith most people lose long before they even know they had it. If this felt familiar, there's more to explore about the way your mind and heart make sense of connection. You're not alone in this.